Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Divinity podcast, episode 32 to be precise. My name is the Robbie Dog, and joining me, as always, is Sabo. And on this episode, we'll be talking about week 3, damn it, of the Spring Split for season 5 of the SPL. And considering this is the halfway point of the split, we're probably going to talk about a bit of stuff regarding that as well, looking back at how the first half of the split went and where we expect things to go from this point in time. So yeah, starting off everything, we're going to do a quick recap of what happened in week 3. And we're starting, obviously, on the EU side on Tuesday, where Energy actually managed to find a big upset victory over Dignitas, especially considering that it was a 2-0 set win over them, which was very unexpected, to me at least. Then also on Tuesday, we saw Obey beat SK in 3 games, which is also kind of unexpected because SK has been the weakest team so far, and Obey was looking like a team that could start contending with the top 3 teams in EU right now. But beating them in only 3 games and not 2-0 didn't look entirely convincing from their part.
Yeah, and going over to North America on Wednesday, we saw Trifecta with a 2-1 victory over LG, and Space Station, Barracuda and the boys finished off Cyclone Spin and Splice 2-1.
Yeah, and then on Thursday, what we saw was Rival finding a 2-0 over SK fairly convincingly, and then Energy finding a 2-0 over Mouz. And to end things for the week on the EU side, we saw Rival also finding a 2-0 over Mouz. So first day was done fairly quickly, all things considered, and not much to say about it.
And we have a lot to talk about on Friday as the champs find their first victory of the season. eUnited 2-1 over Splice in the first set. Then CLG had back-to-back games. Counterlogic Gaming takes down LG 2-0 in the first set. But then eUnited really looks like they did at the end of the last season when they 2-0 Counterlogic Gaming.
Yeah, and this leaves us with the standings at this halfway point of the split. Just to quickly go over those as well. On the EU side, we have a 3-way tie at the top between Energy Esports, Team Dignitas, and Rival, both sitting at 4 wins and 1 losses. Then in 4th place, we've got Obey Alliance with 2 wins and 3 losses. And in 5th place, we've got Mouz Sports with 1 win and 4 losses. And at the bottom, in 6th place, we've got SK Gaming, still with 0 wins and 5 losses so far. Do you want to do the NA side, or should I?
Go ahead and do them because I can't find them.
Okay, yeah. So on the NA side, we've got a bit of a different situation. We've got a okay, good.
All right, on the NA side, we have a Splice team that looks actually fairly good, but haven't been able to find very many set wins, at 1-4 in 6th place. Then we move on up to Zapman and Scary D in 5th place with a 2-3 record. It's actually a 3-way tie for 3rd place right now. Luminosity is one of the other 2 teams at 2-3, while our champs, though they started at 0-3 prior to this week, finding 2 set wins this week, moves them up to a tie for 3rd. Space Station and Counterlogic Gaming are currently tied at the top of North America with a 4-1 record.
Yeah, and things got shuffled around quite a bit on the NA side this week, especially, right, with obviously eUnited finding their first 2 set victories, putting them up from their previous 6th place, where they were stuck, all the way to 3rd place, tied with 2 others, like you said. That is just a massive switch from what we've seen from them so far, and now they're really looking good as far as the standings are concerned, finally.
They're technically still in 5th because they lost both sets to Trifecta and Luminosity, so those 2 teams have the tiebreaker with them.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah, they coming into this week. This was a must-win week for them. They couldn't afford to go 0-5 and hope to make the land at the end of the split. Um,
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how many teams are going to LAN.
I think the top two and then the other four are in a gauntlet with the top. I think top two or top team in the minor league. So I'm not quite sure of how this is going to work either, but they've put themselves in a good position. Obviously, not the best position, the position that they want to be in this far into the split. But like I said, finding the two victories this weekend or this yesterday was very important for eUnited if they were wanting to go to even keep their hopes for the land alive.
Yeah, like if nothing else, it keeps them in contention for spring finals, right? Whereas previously, or if they had gone down 0-5, it would have been incredibly hard to still make it there. Now things are looking a lot better for them.
And at the very least, this improves their gauntlet standings, so they're not at the very bottom of the gauntlet and have to make a run through it. But if this is the eUnited team that we can expect to see the rest of the split, they're going to be a tough team to beat.
Yeah, certainly.
They looked back to form yesterday against Counterlogic Gaming, and yes, the start with the dropping the kill on Harwind and giving Homie Faye a double kill right after that was rough. That didn't look like the normal eUnited we were used to seeing in the fall, but just like how they did things when they were struggling, or when one side of the map got behind, the other side of the map stepped it up, and right after, was it Homie Faye picked up his fourth kill? That's when Panda Cat soloed Snoopy, and then Polar Bear Mike makes a rotation and they kill Snoopy again, and then
Yeah.
that forces Jigs to no longer Athena ult Homie Faye when he's in trouble and out of position, but try to save Snoopy, and which I thought was the champs, or was eUnited showing them that they've worked out all their communication issues, right? Because it was, we can continue to fight and let Homie Faye destroy us, or we can take the fights away from Homie Faye and really limit his effectiveness in the rest of the game.
Yeah, and Panda finding those kills on Snoopy was really impactful in sort of getting them back in, right? Because it's not just that Homie FA didn't get as many opportunities anymore to try and find something himself. It's also that now he had someone on the other team that he had to actually battle with and had to actually try to really beat, right? Whereas over everyone else, he just had a massive lead already due to him just going up 4-0 in the start. Then Panda getting those two kills kind of put him on an even level with Homie Effie and allowed him to sort of beat him and the team to find the victory overall, obviously. And obviously it also hurt Snoopy very much, which hurt CLG's late game in the process. Right. Which is also a very big deal in that regard.
I think shifting the focus of the fights away from Homie Faye helped them out a lot, because, like I said, he started off 4-0, and he was really much in a position to snowball the game after that. Panic Hat picking up those two kills on Snoopy shifted the focus of the fights away from Homie Faye, and putting Habois on the other side of the map where he's not effective in these team fights because he's not in the team fights. That's what the turning point was for me in game one against CLG, because They came out hot. They could have run away with it. United made the adjustments. Handicap played well for the first time this split, and everything happened. Everything from there was just eUnited all the way.
Didn't Panda also have some decent games earlier that day against Splice as well? Well, I'm looking through the scoreboard for those games right now, and it seems like at least in the games they won, he played decently. At least.
Well, let's not count the fact that the game they lost, he was like 0-7 or 0-8.
Yeah, well,
he's not effective in that game.
Yeah, outside of those, but games 1 and 3, he was good, right? So those were his first. That was his first good set of the SPL, and then he doubled down on it in the second one that day, because obviously, right, to find a 2-0 over CLG in general, you're gonna have to have your big players step up, and that's definitely what Panda did in that first game against him, especially, and also in the second one. And yeah, I mean, that win itself was just very impressive. I don't think anyone would have really expected that going into it, outside of the biggest eUnited fanboys, which means most likely you did expect it.
I was nervous. I felt like if we walked away, if eUnited walked away with one win, one set victory over Splice, and maybe another win against CLG, but not a set victory, I think it was a good sign for going forward. But I'm ecstatic. Like right now, I'm happier than I've been all split long, because eUnited very much returned to form against what was considered the top team in North America right now. And CLG, they just didn't look together against eUnited like they had in the past.
Yeah, I think what's really sort of, I think the game that sort of solidified them being back for me was actually not one they played against CLG. It was the last game they had against Splice, right? Because that was also just a massively dominant performance from them, and especially from. Wait, am I saying stuff wrong right now? Let me think.
No, they pretty much whipped up on Splice in Game 3. So.
Yeah, like they did all the stuff that they're kind of known for, right? They put Panda on the Artemis and put PBM on the Amaterasu. That's just eUnited stuff to me, right? That's the type of stuff you expect them to pull, and they pulled it in that game and looked extremely good, right? No one really played too well on the Splice side outside of Divios that game, who had a great game and who did kind of contend with Benji pretty well.
Yeah.
But the rest of eUnited looked miles ahead of their opposition in that game, which is kind of where you expect them to be.
I think going into the split, you would rank the North American solo laners Benji 1, Divios 2. And so for Divios to have a good game against Benji is not surprising, because he is that damn good. What's more surprising was Divios got the solo on him.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that was more to the case of Benji not realizing how many tower shots that he could take, and then Divios jumping over the boulder. It's fairly early in the match of Game 3 that it went. That solo was for Divios.
Yeah, and I think the other symbolic thing for the return of eUnited did kind of happen in the second game they had against CLG, because that was the one where Benji was just doing Benji things again and zoning out 4 people in the back line, and somehow they weren't able to kill him at all because he's just weaving around and he's just tanking up a massive amount of shots for some reason and getting away with it. So
Well, the Bologna game in the first game was a pretty good one as well. Um,
Yeah.
Bologna, there are very few warriors in the late game that can contend with what Bologna can do. Her early game, especially without Pesto now, is a bit susceptible. And so the call in game one for Final K actually had the winning matchup. He just didn't take advantage of it, and he is able to. Bologna was able to transition into that late game where she's such a, pardon my French, annoying cunt.
Hey,
And then
you're not allowed to say that to women. It's a female character.
you're not a woman.
Yeah, but Bologna is.
Touche. Uh, but going into that second matchup where it was Kerberos versus Hercules, they casters try to make it out of like a big deal. There's a big counter matchup for Cerberus over Hercules. I just don't see it. I mean, yeah, the anti-healing there in his kit, but Cerberus is a big boy, big body. He's a lot easier to hit with those earth breakers and driving strikes that Hercules wants to hit and do most of his damage on. So counter pick, yeah, as far as anti-healing goes, but it's not much of a counter pick when you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to hit 90% of your earth breakers on Cerberus because he's so big and slow.
Yeah, I think you can argue that Circuit was the bigger counter pick in that regard.
Yeah, but they were the casters were trying to make it out that Cerberus was the counter pick to Hercules. And obviously, I didn't see it because Benji soloed Final K.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the ending of game two and how it really ended. And if you watched last night, and I know you did, the re-engagement from Panicat and Polar Bear Mike when it was just the 4-on-2 there, like 2 or 3 minutes before the game ended, where they picked up the kill on Snoopy and then they picked up Herwin. You did notice what they were doing, right?
I honestly don't remember, right? It was 6 a.m. for me, I think. Or 4 a.m. at least.
Okay. The Nanu on the new ball had been picked earlier in the fight, and his respawn timer was like
Oh.
11 seconds.
I think I know
He
where you're
had
going with this.
he had the Soul Stone and the E staff, or the Ethereal staff, if you want to get the long name for it. I call it E staff because it's easier to say. But yeah,
Yeah.
they Panic Cat was and Polar Bear Mike kept the fight going, kept them low, even though it was a 4-on-2, and just stalled for time. And that's what it was, stalling for time. So it was a credit to Panic Cat for recognizing the situation, and that situation to me shows that eUnited has worked out their communication issues because you're not waiting for new ball in that situation unless somebody's telling you, "Hey, I'm up in 7 seconds. Hold them there. I can ult." And he ults. Snoopy's gone. They're able to pick off Herwin shortly thereafter. Homie Faye on the Circuits defending a weakened Phoenix. All of a sudden, it becomes 2-on-2, where two tanks against the Hunter. I mean, even in season 5, you don't want your tanks going up against the Hunter because the penetration in that build.
Yeah, just sustained DPS counters your tankiness, just naturally.
It was a good stalling for time, which I think is a good sign for eUnited going forward. They're getting their issues worked out as far as the communication is going, and this is only going to help going further. I think, obviously, I expect more from Counter Logic Gaming going forward, and I think the rematch is going to be very telling between these two teams. But if this is the eUnited team that we can expect going forward, undefeated the rest of the split might be a legitimate goal for eUnited right now.
Yeah, I think I think that's kind of what the question has to be now, right? Where can they go from here? They're still 2 wins behind CLG and Space Station, obviously, and they can only take one more away from them each, right? By just beating them head to head. The other one is inevitably gonna lose against right. One of them is gonna lose against the other one too, so that would already tie them with one of them, assuming they win all of their games, and yeah, assuming eUnited wins all of their games, right? That would tie them with one of Space Station or CLG, whoever loses the head-to-head between them. And that is if they themselves don't drop any games to any of the teams that are still further below, right? Looking at Trifecta and looking at Splice, and potentially still looking at Luminosity, who are all still dangerous teams that you have to look out for.
Yeah, I think the most telling matchup's going to be the next set against for CLG against Space Station, because if CLG can find a win over Space Station, and then eUnited beats Space Station in the rematch, then we have to have a 11th matchup for both of those teams to break the tiebreaker, because they would both be 7-3 at that point.
Yeah.
So they would with a split between the two of them, so they would have to face a third time to see who would go get that final spot at the LAN.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point, right? So if Space Station do end up beating CLG in the head-to-head, they will put themselves at 8-2, and eUnited and Space and CLG are going to be tied for second, but eUnited will have the head-to-head there, assuming they beat them again, obviously.
Which is why I say Space Station versus Counter Logic might be the most interesting set going forward if eUnited can go undefeated.
Yeah. So, speaking of ties, that could happen, and head-to-heads, we obviously have a very interesting tie situation on the EU side right now, right? Because of Energy finding the upset win against Dignitas in their game, which was just them playing just amazingly, and Dignitas not really finding a way into the game, really. They are now tied with Dignitas and with Rival for first place in EU, and all of them have won head-to-heads against each other, right? So you had Dignitas winning over Rival with a 2-1, you had Rival winning over Energy with a 2-1, and now you had Energy winning over Dig with a 2-0. And I don't think game scores matter when it comes to head-to-head, at least from what I know.
I'm not for sure. I don't think they do, though.
So those three teams are in a three-way tie right now, and that is an interesting situation moving forward as well, because obviously, if someone manages to find a win against both the other teams, that most likely puts them in first place for the EU side, and the other two are gonna have to battle it out to determine who gets second place among them, really.
I mean, who would you right now pick as the best team in Europe?
It's hard to call.
Out of those three, who would you pick right now?
I think I would go for Rival right now. Right? I don't think if they meet Dig again, and Dig has not looked perfect, right? They've looked beatable, as Energy has proven. If they meet Dig again, I think they can beat them, and I think they can beat Energy again, and that would obviously put them in first place. But Energy just as easily can beat both Dig and Rival, so that could put them in first place. And if Dig manages to find some solutions to the issues they seem to be having, they could also obviously beat both of them, and that could put them in first place. So it's a really hard situation to call, honestly.
In my opinion, right now, it's Energy.
Okay.
because we've said, so far throughout the season that it is a jungle mid driven league right now.
Yeah.
And I'm I apologize for any of the haters out there, but in a jungle meta, if adapting's in that meta and he's playing like he is, and Yemen is playing like he is right now, they're a hard team to beat. You're asking probably the best player in the world, Baskin not included, adapting, the best player in the world, and a two-time world champion in mid lane to be the backbone of your season, and that to me is something that I'm not taking anything away from Captain Twig or Cubo Fred, but as long as it is a jungle driven league, jungle driven meta, I'm taking adapting over just about anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, that justification makes a lot of sense, specifically when you consider the matchup between Energy and Dignitas, right? You can very easily make the case that adapting and Yamin are a better mid jungle combo than Cuvo and Zeros are right now. Where I don't think it makes all that much sense, or where I think it kind of fails a bit, is when you use it to justify them being better than rival, because whenever anyone's made the point about a team being better than rival, they could have said that they do have the better individual players, right? That has never been rivals' strongest point, their individuals. Rivals always been a team built around that team playstyle, and that's how they've had success. And when you consider that, I think that point kind of gets thrown out of the window, right? The entire adapting dominance doesn't matter as much somehow, because somehow things don't matter as much against rival. It's hard to explain as well. Do you get my point?
Yeah, I get the point. It's about the team for rival. It's not about an individual star. So my issue with rival though is Deathwalker seems to be what? How do I say that? All right, so I get it's not a solo driven meta anymore like it was in the fall of season 4. Excuse me, I got a cough.
Yeah, it's. I think I get what you're saying. Right, there's definitely less ways for solos to be as dominant as they used to be. Just like there are less ways for hunters to be as dominant as they used to be.
Yeah, and when rival found their rise to success, it was all on the team play, while also letting Deathwalker. You said earlier, Benji doing Benji things. Well, allowing Deathwalker to do Deathwalker things, and then the rest of the team playing like a team behind him and capitalizing on what he does. That's the issue right now, as far as I see, when Rival comes along. Solo lane's a lot less impactful, and if you don't have your star player in a good position to affect the game week in and week out, like eUnited's more than just Benji, right? Like, there's Panic Hat and there's Scream, Banana, and Polar Bear Mike. Like, yes, I get Rival is more than just Deathwalker, but take Benji and Deathwalker out of the equation, the 4v4 there, you gotta say that eUnited's more talented, therefore is more talented than Rival's talented for are.
Yeah.
And so it's the solo lane is quiet right now, and that's where I see Rival's biggest issue being. But if they can continue to play like a team and do very much what they've done so far this season, that is like play with a 5-man core, like they said it the other day in the set against, was it SK or Mouse? Rival Rival is all about R5 being better than your 5, not R2 or 3 being better than your 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And so you also, if they can continue to do that and do that with that sort of mentality that R5 is better than your 5, they're going to be fine and they're going to be good. My question is if they get into the game against Energy and adapting pops off, who on this Rival team is going to be able to slow adapting down from not just like completely snowballing the early game and then having Yaman and Emilito on the new wall ADC for like the 12th time this season be a huge factor.
Yeah. See, I think even then you have to do it as a team, right? That's the only way it's really going to work, is if you, as a team, focus on not letting adapting get you anymore, right? Get people on your team anymore. Don't let him pick off people anymore. If you do that, then I can see them having a chance to still shut him down. And it kind of relies in the first place on him getting off to a good start, right? And there you can see that it could be more difficult than it might be against other teams, right? Because look at the solo lane. You've got Deathwalker. He is the best solo in Europe right now, without much question, right? So shutting him down or finding kills on him is going to be harder than finding kills on any other member or any other solo laner in the league. You look at mid laner and you have Wolfie, who can be picked off, right? That's definitely a thing, but I think it's still pretty hard to pick him off, especially considering that he's most likely going to have Ice and Kalas trying to protect him. And in the dual lane, you've got Vote, who isn't really known to be a hunter that plays unsafe, right? He's generally just a For
real though, Vote has probably been the best hunter in EU so far this split.
Yeah, you can make a very good case for that as well, right? So he has been very good as well, and he doesn't play in a way that makes it easy for people to really shut him down, generally. At least not from what I've seen. And I think finding a way to snowball against this team is always going to be hard. And when you can do it, then yeah, you can definitely shut them down. When you can't, and what I think it mainly relies on whether you can is whether Ice is going to be trying to fight you, or whether Ice is going to be trying to avoid you. And I think if he tries to avoid you, tries to find fights without you involved, you as in adapting, it's going to be hard to find a big lead against Rival as an individual player of a team.
Well, see, the question is Ice going to bird bomb you at level 3, or is he going to get picked trying to steal your back harpies?
Yeah, well, that's why he shouldn't play Odin, just in general. Right, what I want Ice to do is play a god that can peel for his mid, either through damage or through CC, from level 3 onwards, basically. And then I want him to not fight adapting until adapting tries to fight someone else. And then he goes in, peels, fights back, maybe finds a kill, but doesn't even have to find the kill. Just don't let adapting get the kill. Get to late game with a non-fed adapting, and you can beat Energy.
See, I think Ice is better when he's aggressive.
Like when he tries to do back harpies 3 times in a row at level 3.
That's being cheeky. I'm thinking being aggressive. bird bombing at level 3 or making a gank as what's Ratatasker without his ult at like level 7. Just throwing something out, trying to get a kill, being aggressive, being cheeky, invading back harpies 3 straight times at level 3 and not getting anywhere. That's being cheeky.
Yeah. Okay.
If Ice is aggressive and he can help put Deathwalker and Wolfie in a good position. Vote and Colossus have been playing well enough that they don't need Ice's help all that much over there. It's about, for Ice, it should be about putting the mid and the solo in a position to affect the game. And if he can be aggressive against adapting in their next set and play well, I think the rival could easily take the win over Energy and then come back and beat Dignitas for the top. But for right now, I'm in a jungle-driven meta. I'm taking the best player in the world, and fault me for it or whatever it is. But like Michael Jordan, yeah, he had a team around him, but when it was go time, he wasn't letting anybody else touch the ball. He was going to do it all himself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's close between the two, right? I think both have a very good chance of taking the number 1 EU spot. And I think both of them are much more likely to take it right now than Dig is. Just because Dig, they've seemed like they are playing a bit too individually, right? And not being enough of a unit, which was where their biggest strength was in the summer of Season 4, right? And that's not an issue that's going to be easily solvable, I think. And not an issue that's going to be as easily solvable as finding a way to shut down adapting, right? And Energy doesn't really need to solve anything right now. They've looked insanely good against Dig, and they've looked insanely good in every set after their initial defeat against Rival, and even there they looked really good, right? So they're the team with the least issues right now. Rival is the team with the second least issues, but I think they can work past them. And Dig is the team with the third least issues, and I think they're gonna have a harder time working past them than Rival are gonna have to.
Yeah, so I agree. Dig's biggest issue right now is their individuality, playing not so much as a unit, but as an individual. And you can't do that in the Pro League. You could get away with it in the minor league or even in the Global Series, but at this level where teams play as a unit and they build their strategies in a certain way to affect the unit, like the caster said it, right? Like in picks and bans, you're not always getting the pick you want. You're getting the pick that the team wants you to play.
Yeah.
And that's that level of selflessness and playing for the team. I'm not getting that vibe from Dignitas right now. And that should be a red flag going forward.
Yeah, and we talked last week about how SK was lacking what's the word? A personality.
Yeah, personality, identity.
Yeah, identity.
Flavor.
Yeah. And Dig is sort of, like I said last week already, that Dig is sort of the team that is good enough to make not having a flavor work for them, right? Right now, that might be a bit of an issue as well. That they're just drafting meta stuff and nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that you can surprise your opponent with, or nothing that they have to adjust to playing around in any way.
correct me if I'm wrong, it was Trixtank that first played the Robin support, right?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But he played Gap twice against Energy. The spiciest pick they had against Energy was let's be honest here. Okay, the spiciest pick they had against Energy was Discordia mid. Or
Man,
Sobek solo. And that's not spicy.
no, that's like a hot dog. That's like grilling a hot dog, kind of spicy.
Yeah.
It's not
And
spicy at all.
on the opposite, right on the other side, Energy had a couple of spicy picks. They had Kronos ADC, they had Nuva ADC, they had Amaterasu support, they still had Raven jungle. Right,
Who
so
was
there's a lot more
wasn't
spice from them.
wasn't it them who played Chiron mid this week, or was it somebody else?
I think it was in the other set they had, the one against Mouse Sports. Let me check. No, they played Chiron ADC.
I thought somebody played Chiron mid. How about- Uh, but yeah, speaking of Mouse, is there is there a more interesting team to watch than Mouse? Because if there is one, please tell me.
No. I mean, did you see their first game against Rival?
Yeah,
So
wasn't that the Agni support?
yeah, but
Yeah,
Rival also played Chrono solo and 4 support and Kamazot's ADC.
that was. There is no more interesting team to watch in season 5 so far than Mouse. Um, Always fun to watch these guys play, even if they're losing. It's because let's talk for a second about the Agni support.
Yeah.
It makes you look at it and you're not like you're probably thinking, oh, it's so stupid to have a mage, a massive burst mage in the support role. It makes sense when you think about it, though, because of the stuns and just how good Agni can be at doing damage from a distance. You can build him tanky with some damage, still be able to put out some massive damage with his bombs, and still be able to protect your back line from in assassins or warriors with all of the stunts that he has. Like I'm if I'm Jermaine, I hate Dardes right now, but I get it. I understand the thought process behind the Agni. If I'm Jermaine though, I'm saying for God's sakes, play somebody that can help me in lane, not somebody that's going to be absolutely useless in lane.
No, you just
Do it.
dash the wave at level 1 and you just insta clear it as Agni. Right, make it very easy for Tremaine to clear. You have lane pressure at level 1. That's more than makes up for him having basically terribly delayed CC all the time.
Give me somebody who can protect my ass, please.
Yeah.
If I'm Jermaine, Dardes is my least favorite person on this team right now. Just play somebody who can help me.
Yeah, Tremaine's just a poor dude right now. And yeah, I mean, maybe he's just looked so poor so far this season because Stardust has just played completely weird gods. Or maybe he just needs to follow in the tank and start playing Kamazot's ADC as well. Like
No,
Wood has.
I tell you what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
quote me on this. Here in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see a Giannis support from Dardes And Jermaine's gonna be like, "Fuck it, I'm running Bologna ADC."
Oh, I would love to see that. To be honest, then just I don't know, put Tings on Uller mid or put Cherio on the Uller jungle, and somehow make it work. Or just give Tings Soul. Right, she's basically a hunter, but not a hunter.
Soul and with the Athena jungle.
Yeah, and then give Nika the Kamazas or something.
Yeah.
It's perfectly balanced team comp, right? It has one of everything. It has a mage. Well, it has 2 mages. But also has a guardian still. Also has a warrior still. And has an assassin. It's perfect. It's like the Giannis comp, except way worse. Right, their other Giannis comp.
Jermaine's gonna get fed up and just be like, "I'm playing something that I can actually protect myself with."
Yeah, just give him something he can survive on. What's the safest hunter you can think of?
Neath.
I don't think so. Like, if she backflips, anyone who has sort of the late range stun is just gonna kill her all the time.
Safest one I can think of. Izanami, probably.
Oh, Ching Wei, maybe.
Yeah, Jingwei.
Just put him on Ching Wei. Perfect. Or Apollo, one of the two. Right, Apollo's safe. He's got a mess, he's got a dash, he's got his ult. I want to see Tremaine play one of these gods in the next week. And see if it works out.
Nija 86.
Why did you pick the least safe assassin, or one of the least safe assassins?
I think about it. Build attack speed and just build that passive up and pop his 2 every 20 seconds, and he's fully healed all the entire time.
Well, what if they pick Serket?
Alright, man out Serket.
What if they pick Odin?
Get a Phantom.
What if they also pick a Hercules, so you also need anti-healing, because otherwise he's just gonna run rampant in your backline? And what if they also build... What's another...
You know, what if the sun was blue?
Well then...
Or pigs could fly.
If the sun was blue, would the sky be yellow?
No.
Yeah, probably not. Anyway.
The sky would be black. Not many people know that a blue sun is actually hotter than a yellow sun.
I'm thinking about whether that's actually true.
Oh, it's true. It's scientifically proven. And think of it this way.
Oh,
you take a lighter, right? You take a lighter, right?
Yeah, blue fire is hotter than red fire and yellow fire.
It's orange it's orange and yellow at the top, but at the base, right where the igniter is, it's blue because that's where it's hottest at.
Yeah, but
hey, you learned something today.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's true. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure though. But I'll just trust that you're right for now. But you have to consider that a sun is a lot hotter than a lighter, so it might not apply, right? Anyway.
The principle is the same, though.
I guess.
A blue flame is hotter than an orange flame. You know what? Let's put this up on let's put this up on the Reddit post. Let's have a vote. Which, who thinks blue is hotter than yellow?
I mean, see, there's 2 theories here, right? Let me explain my stance on it, right? So we both agree that the sun is a lot hotter than a lighter, right? Even the base of a lighter.
Yes.
So why is it not already blue if it's hotter than the blue thing? The blue flame.
I'm not gonna argue with you. We're just gonna let Reddit decide who the victor is here.
Plus, the sun's not even like actually fire. You know that, right? It's
Yeah, I know.
it's gases and stuff. Helium, lots of helium. Anyway, what else is there to discuss on the EU side? I think one team we have to talk about as well is SK Gaming, because we already said last week that they have no identity, and I think they sort of found one this week. And they had a good set against Obey. Then they had a bad set against Rival. But they had one good set this week, which is progress for them. And they played a bunch of weird stuff as well. Because they finally put Funball on the Sol. For one thing.
Is who the best? Is he a permanent or is he just a sub?
I have no idea. I'm not sure if they even talked about that at all.
Because yes, please make him a permanent member of the team. And nothing against Badger, but if playing the Warrior supports week in and week out, game to game, is what this team needs to actually pull out something a little bit different and look good in that fact, because yes, they lost in 3 to Obey, but they looked good in all 3 games.
I'd argue they didn't look too good in the second one. But in the last one, they did look good, yeah. And the first one that they won, they obviously looked good in.
If that's the key to it, if Warrior supports are the key to it, then keep him in.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about, like, that's the main point I kind of want to go to is that kind of gives them a chance to have an identity, right? Because playing the Warrior supports allows you to put Funball on those magical ADCs, if nothing else.
And let's think about it. When Trix was on this team back in the early, maybe not season 2, but like prior to season 2, Trix played the Warrior supports and Funballer played the magical ADCs, and they found the beginning of their success with that combination. So just sub Trix tank out for who the best. Please change the name, by the way, if you're listening. But yeah, if they have to go back to that for Funballer to have success, go for it. I like it. It was fun to watch.
Just imagine Splice and this SK version playing each other on LAN, and then you always have to clarify whether it's who the best you're talking about, or the best, or the best. Right, the best as in someone who's better than everyone else. I would not wish that upon casters, so definitely do change your name. But
thank God neither of them are in a position right now to have that happen.
Yeah, that's the most positive thing, because they're both last in the league. So, and yeah, I think it's the one change that makes sense, right? You either have to put Batcha on these types of Warrior supports, and then put Funballer on the magical ADCs, or you're just not gonna have magical ADCs. Unless you make different roster changes, or different playstyle changes. Because Stucky is your best player right now. You do not force him away from the Warriors and the Assassins. You just do not. Fails is your second place player right now. You do not force him away from the Assassins either. Lobster is Lobster. He's not playing Hunter mids. So your only option is to play Warrior supports put Funball on magical ADCs and keep the damage somewhat intact through that. So yeah, just do that and maybe things will work out a bit better for SK.
They definitely became more interesting to watch this week.
Yeah, and it's all because Who the Best did weird stuff and Funball did
Weird.
actually look good for once.
So yeah, nothing against Badger, but if Who the Best fits better with this team and makes them interesting to watch because he's playing the Warrior sports, I'd rather have Who the Best than Badger.
Yeah, I agree 100%. But where do we think this roster can go? Can they be better than Mouz? If Mouz still does weird stuff and has weird games due to it.
I'd still take Mouse, to be honest with you. I think as far as it goes right now, I think Mouse is just a better team.
But just think about how big of a mismatch you could have in the dual lane with Funball finally coming into his own and Jermaine still struggling massively. Because that could be a bit of an impact. Potentially.
Yeah. I agree.
But yeah. That's SK, and I'm not sure where they're gonna go. But they might be trending upwards. Assuming they keep Who the Best and or again bring Batcha back and put him on some unconventional picks. Because I don't think they're gonna be good just by following the meta.
I hate Hi-Rez.
What?
We'll talk in a minute. I hate Hi-Rez though. But yeah.
Okay.
Let's before we get to the reason why I hate Hi-Rez, let's talk about MVPs for this week.
Wait, is there nothing else you want to discuss on the NA side?
Nothing particular, no.
I mean, okay, I'm gonna raise a point here, real quick. It's the same thing happening to Luminosity right now that happened to ALG in the summer split of Season 4. Because they came into the split looking amazing, which wasn't really what people were expecting, right? I don't think we had them as being the number one team after week one of the split, or had them as a team that would look amazing after the first couple of weeks of the split. And now they've just lost 2 games against Trifecta and against CLG, and they got completely stomped by CLG. Is this team trending downwards, or is there still hope for them?
Well, let's bring that back up next week because it's going to be an interesting topic next week as well. Right now, though, I think that the bar on LG is right where it needs to be. They're tied for that third spot, though nobody expects them to be in the third spot come here in a few weeks. But it wasn't exactly a stomp against Counter Logic. Game 1 was very much in LG's wheelhouse to win it. They just made a couple mistakes there at the end where Counter Logic was able to pick up the slack and get the victory over them in Game 1. Game 2 was a complete stomp. The set against Trifecta was a back and forth set. Both teams pretty much showed that they were even with each other. So I think it's interesting right now for LG to to look at where they're at and not be disappointed with their season yet. I don't want to put them in that category of Allegiance was for the summer of season 4, where they come in looking really good and then completely fall apart because we're not, we just reached the halfway point. They still have 5 more sets to go and see if they can, because they played well in a lot of their sets. They just haven't been able to find the wins. If they can get it to where that they could find some of those wins and pick up a couple wins, I think 4th is a realistic goal for them. And then we see what happens in the spring gauntlet, if there is a spring gauntlet, which I do think Jerez has said something about a spring gauntlet in the past. I'd have to check and make sure, though.
Yeah, I'm just kind of worried that that's where they're going right now, right? And if that ends up being the case, then it will be weird that history kind of repeats itself again with this roster that has some similar aspects to the ALG one, right? I think Weekend was on that one, right?
One similar aspect is all you're getting at right now, because it was just Weekend.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, then yeah, it will be Weekend's fault basically. But yeah, I think it's just trending in that direction right now from what I've seen. Even though they were the number 1 in the early summer split, right? And they were never really the number 1 here because they lost their other game in the first week. I think it was against the Space Station guys.
Yeah, it was Space Station.
Oh, in week 2 against Space Station, yeah. And yeah, I'm just curious to see where his team goes in that regard, to be honest.
Well, that's why I said to wait till next week to see what happens, because have you noticed the schedule for this week?
Yeah, it's the reverse from last week. Yeah.
No, it's not the reverse. It's the exact same one.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I mean, it's the same thing, yeah, because we're in the middle of the split. We're just reversing the matchups that we had in the first half and playing them
No,
again.
It's literally week 3, attempt number 2.
Yeah, so
because the matchups
they call it week 3, part 2, Electric Boogaloo.
It's Electric Boogaloo. I like that. It's Energy versus Dignitas. Obey versus SK on Tuesday. The exact same we had this last week. Wednesday matches are the exact same. Trifecta versus LG. It's that's why I hate high res right now. Like, we just literally just saw this. Give us something.
I mean, it makes sense though. Right, you want to have the highlights of the split at the start and at the beginning, at the end as well. So you have the best matchups in week 1, which for the NA side, let me check. Where are the highlights? eUnited against Space Station. And that's it, basically. And I guess CLG Trifecta if you want to be generous. And on the EU side, we actually had highlight matchups, right? We had Rival against Energy, and we had Rival against Obey, and we had Obey against Dick. And you want to have those in the last week, so you just reverse the thing. So week 3 is the same as week 4, and then week 2 is the same as week 5, and week 1 is the same as week 6. Makes sense.
Okay, you think it makes sense. I hate it. Okay.
I mean, you can still hate it even if it does make sense. There's nothing wrong with that.
I just think you could do it better than just having it. Like they snaked the split.
Yeah.
It's 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. That's how it's set up. If they've snaked the split, And if you've done fantasy drafts in the past, whether it's you know baseball or football for the European footballs, if you've done fantasy drafts like that, snake draft is what people go by.
Should I tell you a secret?
What's that?
I once did a fantasy league for League of Legends for one of their spring splits. I think it was in 2016. So I'm basically a trader to all of Smite.
That's why your name is the dog shit containers.
Yeah. But yeah, they have snaked their league. What was your point about fantasy stuff?
That's if our listeners weren't aware of it, that's how snakes, that's how it works. Fantasy drafts are good examples to use when you're talking about fantasy snake drafts and stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, MVPs was our next talking point that I wanted to go over. So, should I start with my EU MVP?
Yes.
Well, you see, there was a team who found a big victory over a strong opponent this week, and their name was Energy Esports. And there was one player in that team who had an amazing set, and who also happened to have an amazing set in their other set victory against a fairly weak opponent. And that man's name is Adapting. So he's my MVP. Because he is back, and he is amazing, and Rival didn't play anyone good this week, so can't give it to them.
Alright, touche. So, my NA MVP is obviously coming from eUnited. It's kind of a difficult one to choose from because Benji looked good this week. And yes, Venenu kind of fell behind in that game 2 against the LG, but was very much impactful late game where the new wall needs to be impactful. I'd love to give it to Paul Mike, but supports just don't get that kind of accolades. And it's got to be Pandacat for me this week. I mean, he's been very quiet up until this yesterday against the two sets they had yesterday. And he had one bad game in that game 2 performance against Splice, but was very much an integral part of eUnited getting back on track and finding 2 set victories yesterday. And we made the point that Pandacat needed to step up for eUnited to find success, because it was very much that they needed him over there in the hunter role to do more than he was for them to find wins, and he actually stepped up this week. So I'm giving it to Pandacat this week, even though I would like to give it to Benji, because Benji looked like Benji. I just think Pandacat stepping up was more important than Benji looking like Benji.
Yeah, that certainly makes a lot of sense, right? I think Benji still had games where he didn't look amazing. So did Panda, to be fair. But Panda really won them the first game against CLG, and that was one of the most important games of that entire week, and played amazing in game 2. So he was really the one guy who stepped up massively in their big set of this week, so definitely deserves to go to him. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I like it.
So, I guess week 4 match of the week is kind of
Same
stupid.
as last week.
Yeah, because it's the same match as the last week, basically. And unfortunately, on the EU site, there's not even too much exciting stuff, right?
Toss and Rattle, right? Or not Dignitas and Rattle, but Dignitas and Energy.
Yeah, Dig Energy, Obey SK as a sort of wildcard second best match of the week. Because again, SK might step up. And Obey still has to look better if they want to break into the top 3 in the second half of the split. Which we didn't really talk about, to be honest. They are still having some issues right now. I mean, could you see any of the top 3 teams in EU right now dropping a game to SK?
No, I do not. But Obey, if we're going to backtrack for a second, the reason I didn't bring up Obey was because their situation was pretty much the same as what we talked about last week. And so we're going to be rehashing the exact same stuff we said last week when it came to Obey. Their situation is very much the same. Ataraxia hunters are just not good in the meta right now. Obviously, there's a disconnect between Raffer and the rest of the team, and when those two get sorted out, Obey's gonna be a lot better. But it's pretty much the same situation as it was last week for Obey. It's just time heals all wounds, right? So we just gotta give them time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the situation's a bit different when you look at the hunters that have stepped up last week, right? We talked specifically about Panicat. We talked about Funball. Ataraxia is going to have to be the next one to really step it up if Obey wants to find more success. And others have shown that you can do it. I want Ataraxia to do it as well. And if he can do it, then good things coming forward for Obey. If he doesn't, then it's going to be hard to really break into the top 3, in my opinion. Their biggest chance might be against Dignitas, which I think they'll play in the last week, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, last game of the entire split. On the EU side is going to be Obey Dignitas. That will be their one big chance, I think, to find a win against one of the top 3 of EU right now. But yeah. Well, on your side, can you just rehash what your games of the week are going to be next week?
Well, I guess we start off on Wednesday again with LG Trifecta. Obviously, they're tied for 3rd right now. It's going to be... This set's going to tell us who has the edge as far as those 2 teams are concerned. And then going to Friday, it's eUnited and Counter Logic Gaming round 2, and it's got to be a better set from Counter Logic Gaming this time. eUnited just needs to repeat what they did last week, and they'll be good to go. But yeah, those are my sets to watch this week.
Yeah. So, since this is the halfway point, I think it makes sense at this point in time to do some predictions. Or it would make sense if we would actually know who qualifies for the spring finals LAN, right? But we don't. But anyway, I'm going to ask both of us to do predictions for where we think each team's going to end up in either region, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Should I start for the EU side?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, so I think... I mean, we already kind of talked about it, but I think in 6th place is still going to be SK Gaming, right? They might find a victory at this split, but if they do, then I definitely expect Mouz Sports, who I still put ahead of them, to also find one, or at least to win the tiebreaker that would happen between the 2 of them. In 4th place, I think it's going to be Obey Alliance. I don't see them catching up to rival Dignitas and Energy that quickly. And then for the top 3, I've got Team Dignitas in 3rd place, Energy in 2nd place, and rival in 1st place, like we already talked about. So yeah, those are mine for the EU side.
Now,
What are yours?
Do you want me to do EU or you want me to go NA now?
Both.
All right. Well, only disagreement we have in EU is who the top two are. I think you've got it backwards. Right now, I see Energy better than Rival, so I would put Energy number one and Rival number two. But the other four remain the same. As far as NA goes, NA is a lot more jumbled. It's harder to pick uh, 6 through 3 or 6 through 4. Pretty sure I know who number 3 is right now going forward with how they played this week. But number 6, like Splice, Trifecta, and Luminosity have all looked good so far this split.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to put those 3 in order of top to bottom. I just gotta stick with Splice right now, being in number 6. They've looked better than their record shows, but they've yet to find any wins. And the other 2 teams that I've already mentioned, Trifecta and LG, have actually found some of those wins and actually look better. LG is number 5 for me, just because I think Trifecta has looked good in every set, but they haven't found wins yet, where LG has looked bad in a few sets. Number 3 right now is eUnited, but that can change going forward because they did look good this week. They did look like their Season 4 World Championship self. Is it too late for them? No, it's not too late for them, considering they've still got 5 matches left to play in the season. It's really going to be what the 2 teams ahead of them do. And the 2 teams ahead of them are Space Station and Counter Logic Gaming. Number 2 and number 1. Because the head-to-head matchup went in favor of Counter Logic Gaming, I'm going to put Counter Logic ahead of Space Station right now.
Yeah, I agree with that one, to be honest. What I do not agree with is, and you can call me a hater for saying this, but I don't think that Splice is going to stay in last place, because I think that Luminosity is actually going to drop down to that. Right, Splice is still a team that has to find more synergy, and I think especially Best and Divios have to settle back into being SPL players still, even though they've both looked good individually, right? Especially Divios has looked good individually. But as this roster grows a bit further together, I can see them very easily taking a game, taking their next match against Luminosity, which I think is also going to be next week actually. Or am I wrong about that?
No, Splice has Space Station and eUnited next week.
Oh yeah, so they don't even need to win against those, right? Where I think they can find a win. I think they can beat Luminosity when they face them again. And I think they still have a decent chance against Trifecta. So I would put Splice probably in 5th place, Trifecta probably in 4th place, and Luminosity in 6th place. And again, you can call me a hater if you want to. But that's my prediction. Outside of that, I agree with you. Or no, wait, let me think. I don't know if I want to go for the risky call of calling eUnited the number 1 team as the split ends. They might
Notice
be.
that. Notice that I only said they were 3, not number 1.
Yeah. Again, that's why I'm still thinking about it.
The question with eUnited remains: is that poor start going to be hurtful them? Is that going to hurt them as the split plays out?
I mean, we did the maths, right? And the maths say that they can overtake both of them if whoever wins the head-to-head drops another match somewhere else. Because that's just going to tie them up at first place. And then I assume we'd have a tiebreaker match between them to determine who would actually get first place. That eUnited could definitely win. So, yeah, I'm shuffling that stuff around, to be honest. I'm putting eUnited first place. And I'm putting CLG second, Space Station in third.
Again, I think we got to see how the rest of the split plays out, because they're not guaranteed to be first. A lot of stuff have to go their way. One thing is they have to go undefeated the remaining of the split, and then whoever wins the head-to-head has to actually lose another set along the way, whether it be to Splice or Trifecta or Luminosity, like, to create that 3-way tie scenario. A lot of things have to go right for eUnited. So,
yeah. See, I'm calling it right now. Splice will win their next match against CLG.
Right.
And when they do, it will make eUnited overtake them in the standings.
Realistically, number 2 is where eUnited has the best chance of being. Like I said, though, a lot of things have to go their way in order for them to be in that top spot. So,
yeah,
let's wait and see. I hope you're right, because I'm an eUnited fan. But being realistic with myself, number 2 is definitely a realistic spot for eUnited right now, going further into the set.
Yeah. I hope I'm right, because it would be a great storyline. Them coming back from going 0-3, not dropping any games anymore for the rest of the split, and taking first place. So I would love to see that.
And regardless of the standings, right? Like, they might be number 2 in the standings if they're the best looking team. Then you got to say they're the best team in North America, regardless if they're 1 or 2.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's my opinion.
Yeah, like that's certainly right. Right, form plays a matter, and form matters, not plays a matter. That's not an actual English sentence. Form matters, and form at the end of the split is gonna be more important than form at the start of the split. And if you're winning at the end of the split and you lost at the start, then it doesn't matter outside of the standings all that much, as long as you make it to LAN, obviously. So yeah, eUnited, I think,
or vice versa. If you're playing well at the beginning of the split, but you're not playing the best at the end of the split, even if you make it to LAN, you're in trouble.
Yeah. So, poor Dignitas, man. Anyway, do you have any closing words?
No, not this week. You cut me off last week.
Yeah. Let's not do casting again.
I can't do casting this week. Yeah. I'd like to, but I can't.
I don't want us to. So anyway, if that's all there is to say, then that was it from the Divinity podcast for this week. If you have anything to say to us, leave us a comment somewhere, or
remember to vote in the Reddit thread. Which is hotter, a yellow sun or a blue sun?
Well, it's not a vote. I'm just gonna Google it after we're done, and then it's gonna be scientific fact that determines who's right.
Google it.
And
Google it right now.
I think it can. Okay, let's do it right now. Yellow sun.
I want confirmation on the podcast that Sabo was right, Roby was wrong.
Okay. Fucking hell, they can't just answer now. Which stars are cooler, red or blue? Blue stars are hotter, so your answer is right. So,
voila.
Yeah.
That's why the energy soul skin is hotter than the normal soul skin, because she's blue. I think epsilon soul skin. My mistake.
But yeah. Did you know though that the sky is blue because blue light gets scattered more than the other wavelengths? So it gets scattered across the sky, and the rest doesn't.
Yes,
as much.
It's the same thing, same reason why the blue suns are hotter than yellow sun. Frequency, the speed of the frequency. Blue is a higher frequency speed, so you see it scattered more than you would like a yellow or orange. If the sky was like yellow or orange, it would be like we wouldn't have like much of an ozone. When the when the sun's rays hit the ozone, the light, it's the white light is a combination of all colors, right?
Yeah.
So when it hits the ozone, the higher frequency light wave, blue, is the one that's seen. That it's a higher frequency than the others.
But okay, wait. If the sky was yellow, or if the sky was orange, right? Like in a sunset all the time. The one thing that I'm pretty sure it would mean is that we would have a thicker atmosphere, right? Because then it would get scattered more. When the sun sets, it's shining on the earth or on where you're standing at a steeper angle, right?
That's
so it gets scattered more.
That comes down to the direction, or the direction of the sun when it hits where you're standing.
Yeah, but it passes through more atmosphere, right?
Indirect light rays versus direct light rays. Reason why we have winter and summer, because more indirect light waves are hitting us during the winter and it's colder. That also plays effect at the sunset. That's why it's typically the coldest part of the day before you get into night is at the sunset. It's because the indirect rays from the sun are actually hitting the earth at a weird angle, and it's coming up with all these colors that are not blue because they're not they're not directly hitting the sun or hitting the earth at a direct angle.
See, I'm pretty sure it's just because the light passes through more atmosphere, more of it gets scattered, and that causes the sky to appear in colors outside of blue.
This is a esports show. This is not a scientific.
Yeah, but see, if we had a duty to teach people something, like an educational duty, whatever, we've just fulfilled it. So.
Yeah, basically, blue is a higher frequency of light than orange or red.
Or, in other words, if you see a blue flame, or wait, if you see a red flame, do not touch it, because it's fire. But if you see a blue flame, definitely do not touch it, because it's even hotter fire.
Just don't touch. Just don't touch fire.
Yeah. Anyway, still, I
That's it.
was already ending this show, Sabo.
That's it for the Tuesday night podcast.
Well, I know I said Divinity podcast.
Well, fuck me. All right, let's end the show. Let's go.
Yeah. As I said, that was it from the Divinity podcast for this week. And in addition to commenting us stuff that you want to comment, you can also like this video if you enjoyed it. And you can subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud if you want to be notified when new episodes come out. You can also follow us on Twitter to get the same thing and to get more stuff. And we really have to do the fucking predictions, Sabo. I'm not kidding. I want your predictions in written form tomorrow.
My predictions are the exact same results as last week.
It's a great prediction. And yeah, that is all. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Sabo, for being here with me this week, as always. And good night. Good smite.